Alright, Trial Mob, I know I've been gone for quite a few days, but the benefit of that is that at this point, rather than just having a couple of prototype photos and stuff like that, I actually already have full-on photos of everything. So I'm going to go ahead and show you guys the progression in this, and I have more updates coming throughout the day. I'm just throwing this one in while I'm at work, but I am going to try to have a few follow-up right after. So let's go ahead and get it started. Alright, Trial Mob, so to begin everything, we do have this promotional image of the upcoming Joytoy Warhammer figures that will be coming out as a China exclusive only. Now, something that I wanted to touch base more so on this was something that Gunnar Roberts was telling me, so big shout out to him because I hadn't thought about this necessarily before, but one of the main reasons why most likely we are not getting these, at least at first in the United States, is that there's already two other brands that are paying for the licensing, and I imagine that the licensing is fairly expensive, so they're not really sure if it's going to be the hit that we all think it's going to be. Obviously, you and I are great 1/18th scale collectors. It's stuff that we want and that we would buy for sure, but that doesn't mean that on the larger grand scale it's something that would happen here, especially considering what Joytoy would have to sell these for in order to make their money back if they were to get the licensing here. Obviously it's a lot cheaper for them to just sell it in China on a smaller licensing amount that they would have to pay, so hopefully that turns out for us. Now, on the other side of Joytoy, we have seen this guy before. This is one of the guys that I showed you with the half robotic face, half robotic body. Well, it looks like he's way more robotic than I thought he was, because as you can tell, he looks like Jax here from Mortal Kombat with both robotic arms. We do get the dog on the left, which is nice. Now, the good thing about me being disappearing basically for the last like week is that I have all this new information to show you guys all at one time rather than have it fragmented. So as you can tell, these are a few different photos of what the actual figures are going to look like, and as you can tell, there is a few differences. So here we do see that same armor on the figure, but here he's bare chested instead and has actual skin instead of robotic arms. But the gold color and the blue suit looks really nice, so I'm curious to see how many of these figures we're going to be getting, because it looks like we're getting a full squad. Now, I imagine this is that same character we just saw a second ago, right, since he does have regular skin and not the metallic arms, and as you can tell, he still has a little bit of metallicness in his face, which is kind of dope, because are these guys androids, cyborgs? It's not quite clear, but I do like the overall color. This looks very much so like the heavy cavalry armor on the lower half of the body, and then he's holding a sword, so I'm down for any kind of sword that they're willing to give us, so that's pretty badass. Here's another look at that sword looking mighty fine, and as you can tell, he does hold it perfectly well, which is not always the case with Joytoy stuff, so luckily this one isn't a problem, but the sword itself does look pretty dope. Now here we are noticing a bigger difference, and this is more what we saw before, right? The robotic arm and chest and then part of the face. So it's really cool to see how these are coming along. We already know what the armor is basically going to look like, so this is more of an older prototypical figure that we got, but everything that he comes with is pretty badass, and I'm getting a super like John Connor Terminator vibe from this, and I can dig that. Now this one right here is actually kind of surprising because the whole motif of being kind of like cyborg-esque is kind of gone here. This is just a regular body, and as you can tell, it actually does look really nice. The overall proportions, what we're getting here, I think it looks really good. But again, this is more of a normal human figure, but that face sculpt looks kind of phenomenal, I'm not gonna lie. He has a lot of personality, so here's to Joytoy obviously making a few leaps and bounds in the way their faces look. Now, I didn't realize that they were going to give us a size comparison, but in the size comparison, you can tell this is a large guy. The regular Joytoy World War II stuff is not short by any means, so this right here is with no armor on, no helmet on, and he's already taller than a helmeted, World War II figure, so it's going to be a very good size. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I do believe this is going to be a new gun that we haven't gotten before. It's kind of nice to see what it looks like in the whole setup. I imagine in your diorama this would look absolutely badass. And of course, again, you can tell how large these figures are. The bucks on these guys are so large that they're even taller than some of the older, larger Joytoy stuff. So that's actually really badass. I'm pretty stoked about what these are going to look like in their final product. Now, I wanted to just show here that we are getting some kind of actually this is very similar to what we saw in the last photo, but it's different. It's got a different stand, so I'm curious what they're going to do here with these Gatling guns, but it is pretty badass to see some of these prototypes, because eventually we'll be getting these either with the figures or on sets on the side, or maybe a follow-up weapons pack, so that'll be dope. Now, still with Joytoy, we are getting some other kind of mech. Now, as I mentioned, at this point, we actually do have confirmation on what it is. This is going to be basically a maintenance mech with a maintenance figure that should be coming with it. So let me go ahead and show you what that actually looks like. So these right here are the actual prototype renderings, which is pretty badass to see because I feel like we never get an opportunity to see this kind of stuff, and this is really cool to see because this isn't just a prototype. This is like an on-screen prototype, which I kind of wish, you know, agree with me here if you agree with me, but I kind of wish companies would do this more often, showing us a prototype while it's still on the screen and then getting some feedback from the community so that they can make changes like this. Like if we had had an opportunity to see how tall the Space Marines were going to be, and if maybe we could have voiced our opinion to make them a little bit bigger, I think that Joytoy could have done that. So, I mean, I don't know. I think it would be something that would be very nice for us to get in the future. Just an opportunity to be able to speak with them at this stage in order to get more the product that we want. So Joytoy Acid Rain, if you guys are hearing this or watching this, consider doing that with the community. All right, and here we just have some promotional images, more caricature images, so not the real thing, but it does look pretty badass. I do like it. And let's go ahead and transition. Again, just a quick photo of what some of the pieces are going to look like. Again, this is really dope to see it at this point in the process of making the figure. And now here we have the figure in all its glory. And I gotta admit, this this yellow color with the black trim, this has really got it going on for me. This is pretty cool. I kind of hope that they end up giving us this kind of color combo in the future with an actual battle robot, but still, even if just as a like a maintenance unit, this is pretty cool. I think if you don't want to buy any of the small ones because you have all the big robots, all the big mechs, the normal size Joytoy mechs, you should consider maybe this one. I think this is going to be a really dope piece once it comes out. All right, and then here we do get a breakdown of what the actual figure is going to look like with all the pieces off of it. So as you can tell, it does come with a fair amount of stuff. What I do like to see is right down the middle, there is what looks like a pistol. So I don't know if that's an attack weapon, right? Like a self-defense weapon, or maybe that's more for soldering or something. But obviously this could be used as an attack weapon anyway. It's got a fat fucking drill on it, so of course you could. But I think it's an overall really nice look. And as I mentioned, this is something that I may pass on because it's not really my type of thing. But for some of you guys who have some of the bigger stuff, some of this maintenance stuff will just look absolutely amazing with your already large and in charge mechs. Alright guys, so switching over to still Joytoy, but a different era of war. So we basically saw these before, but now we're getting a full promotional set of what is going to be basically Chinese soldiers from the Korean War. Now I do want to say that these are Chinese soldiers. That's what I've heard so far. So if anybody knows for sure, please correct me or let me know what actual faction these are. But they do look pretty dope. I do like the overall aesthetic. These are fairly realistic, and I'm pretty sure if I were to Google right now what this army looked like, this is going to be very spot on. Joytoy has been getting better and better since their first releases. You know, something that I spoke with Damon before was that, you know, some of their original World War II releases weren't all that accurate, and it just looks like they've been getting better and better for every single release that we get. Now, I currently own some World War II stuff, and let me just tell you, they don't necessarily look down sight. You can make them hold the gun fairly well to get as close as possible. Where you can get them to look down sight, they're just not holding the gun perfectly well. I'm not sure if this set right here has been able to necessarily get over that, but if you look at the right hand of the guy holding the pistol, you will notice that it's on a fairly fat ball joint, and while it doesn't necessarily look the best, I wouldn't be surprised if that gives it the extra articulation it needs to be able to actually hold these guns well. And to be honest, when it comes to form over factor, sometimes form is a little bit better. Now, I'm not sure if maybe the quality has gone up a little bit, but most of this stuff used to be 5-man sets, but I'm starting to see that they're dropping down to 3-man sets. So again, I don't know if that's a quality thing or an engineering thing or why we're getting less per set, so that means you'll have to buy more. Which does mean it's going to be more costly if this is an army that you do like, but again, at least it is an option. And to be honest, if you do have to pay a little bit more, but you get characters that have a better range of motion and overall or higher quality, then that's going to be up to you to decide whether or not that's worth. However, I do think that these guys do come with a fair amount of stuff on them, and they do look decently high quality. And again, there are definitely a few options that we do get, which is nice, and I do hope that they continue this. Now here where it gets really cool. So basically we had 3 soldiers before, here we have 3 soldiers again, and as you can tell they look fairly similar, but a few differences, and the main difference is that this right here is their winter uniform. So we're actually getting 2 sets. One set is going to be for summer, and then one set is going to be for winter. I think that's pretty fucking dope. I actually kind of wish we could have gotten some of that stuff. Like the Germans, I would have loved to have seen their winter uniforms. The Battle of the Bulge is one of my favorite operations of World War II. So I would have liked to have seen that, and obviously the American forces in their basically winter uniforms. So I think this is incredibly badass that we're getting both sets, one depicting summer, one depicting winter. So that is pretty badass. Now, same thing as before, it is going to be a 3-man set. The weapons don't seem to have changed too much as far as I can tell. Everything looks, again, accurate as far as I can tell, very realistic. Those ball joints, again, are large, but I can definitely tell that it gives them that extra amount of articulation that hopefully will allow them to hold their guns without a problem and be able to aim down sight, which is something that I definitely feel they can do. But again, it's not perfect, but I do like what's going on here. So when it does come to this newer Joytoy stuff, this isn't World War II anymore. This is, I believe, the Korean War, which happened right after. So for me, I don't know if I'm going to buy these because I'm focusing on World War II stuff currently. And Joytoy hasn't released everything. I didn't know this, but Australia fought Japan in World War II. And if you Google right now what the Australian soldiers look like, they're Rangers. They look bad as hell. And I'm hoping that Joytoy eventually comes around to make more of that before they move on to the next war. Maybe we'll get Vietnam at some point in the future, which would be dope. But I do hope that they give us a few more releases from World War II before they completely move on to another era of war. But if these are something that you've been interested in, here they are. 2 different sets, 2 different climates. And I think that that's going to be really badass to be able to purchase if you can't get your hands on these.